Today we are joined by a player whose journey through football is a true testament to hard work, dedication and perseverance, James Craigen. James took an unconventional route into professional football, starting his journey at Edinburgh University, where he balanced academics with his passion for the game. His talent on the pitch earned him an incredible opportunity to represent Scotland and Great Britain University at the World University Games in Japan, competing against some of the best student athletes from around the world. From there, James made the transition into full-time professional football, signing with Partick Thistle, and then built a strong career in the game. In this episode, we dive into James's unique pathway to professional football, the lessons he learned along the way, and his experience playing at different levels in the game. His journey is a great example that there's no one set route to making it in football, and we can't wait to share his story with you. Let's welcome James Craigen.
JC, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here. Been following the podcast from afar. So now really happy to be here.
No, it's good that you've taken the time to come and speak to us. So the first question I've got for you is, you started your career at Preston. You were there for 10 years. Talk us through that journey and the transition from that to making a decision to go to university.
So there for 10 years, joined as 8 years old. Look back at it, really fond memories. I think I got picked up from school, and actually I was going to sign for Blackburn Rovers.
Right.
But my parents were, and I got invited to a trial at Blackburn, and I think it was like 500 kids. And I think my dad took me for the first Saturday, and he was like, I think he's told me the story since to my mum. They came back for the first week saying, Carolyn, there's 500 kids here, and they were chopping people every week. Anyway, 4 weeks later, I got to the last 15.
Yep.
So I got invited to go and sign, and just before I did, Preston got on the phone, and because we lived in the Preston area, it made it a lot easier for kind of work commitments. My parents take me to Preston, and they booked me up an age group as well, which meant I was playing matches. So even though my dad was saying a lesser teams, I think Blackburn were either in the Premier League at that point or a higher level than Preston.
Yeah.
He said, but you can play matches because they're going to play in a higher age group. So I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. So I know, signed for Preston.
So you
sold it to me. Yeah, good salesman, Dad. So he sold it to me, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Worked my way through the setup. Remember signing a 4-year deal at 12. 4-year contract at 12, which probably shouldn't at the time. Looking back, probably shouldn't have done that, but I loved it there. And then, got to those age groups at 16 to 18. So I started playing full time with Preston whilst continuing my studies. But I knew quite kind of like early on into that full time, kind of like 2 years, that I was possibly going to be struggling to be, break into the first team, and kept on. I think, you get to 16 and you kind of like know they had a player a year above me, my position centre midfield, who they were pushing, and someone in the year below as well, who they also quite liked. So I was quite sandwiched in the middle. So I started kind of making plans for the future as well quite early on. Managed to stick in there at school. My parents always said, they knew my dream to be a footballer and fully supported that, but they always said, you need a plan B. So I studied A levels at school, did economics, PE and psychology. And when the news came that I wasn't going to be kept on, which was the correct decision, I kind of applied to university. 4 universities I applied for. I think it was 3 or 4. Leeds, Loughborough, and Edinburgh Uni. And we always have a laugh about it because my first choice was actually Loughborough, but I didn't get in. So and I ended up at Edinburgh Uni, and then the rest is history, as they say with that.
And when you started at Edinburgh University, what was our sports programme like?
Fantastic. I know that we crossed paths there quite early on. But no, it was brilliant. So obviously going from a full-time football setup, even though I was going to university to study and gain an education and a new life experience, I always had that belief that I was still going to be a professional footballer. So I wanted to make sure that I was going to an environment with a good football programme. And at that point, the university team trained on a Monday. We had a compulsory strength and conditioning session on a Tuesday morning at Peth Mill. It was a performance, not just the main gym. It was in the performance centre. Matches against Bucks teams on a Wednesday, and then all the university teams in the Bucks format, and then training on a Thursday. Finally, we got a day off on a Friday, and then match in the East of Scotland, so the East of Scotland League at the time, on a Saturday against in a men's league. So lots of football. And lots of learning to be done, and it was great for me at that point, being quite slight, probably not fully developed as well, that I was playing more games, sheer amount of more games. I was being put in situations, playing midfield, playing against men, repetition of being in those situations, how to go and break lines with a pass, how to go and, kind of go and compete for second balls. I went from youth team football, playing 15, 20 games to playing 55, and that improved me as a player, on and off the pitch, massively.
Do you think a lot of academies struggle from that transition in terms of that academy football is predominantly ball on the ground, and then when they go into like a man environment, like you're talking at that point it would be East of Scotland, equivalent to Lowland League now, you're playing against men, the ball's in the air quite a lot, it can be quite scrappy, and it's quite hard to adapt to that when you've been used to the ball on the deck academy football. Yeah,
I think so, and it's different, it's hard, and I know that you're passionate about coaching it, as I am now, coming to the end of my playing career. And I think we spoke about this with kids, isn't it? It's how can you kind of like, you want to create kind of like technical plays as well. But unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, Scottish football, there is going to be elements of the game where you need to go and fight for second balls. And I don't think that's going to change. You have good football inside. And I think younger players do struggle with that. I think that it's something that can probably be worked on more, but not just younger players in Scotland. I remember I know maybe we'll touch on it later on in the podcast, that even players from high level players in England coming on loan to Scottish football, I think they struggle with that. Yes, they've got technical ability, but can they go on, change the game to go and play in the Scottish Championship or the Scottish Premier League? So it's something definitely we need to look at. There's some great technical players in Scotland as well, but I think now they need to be doing everything, both sides of the game.
And then it begs the question: is Scotland the best place for these players to develop?
Exactly, and that's opening a can of worms as well, isn't it? Yeah, I know. I think so as well. I mean, I think a great example is you go and look at Rangers B. I played Rangers B a couple of times. Brilliant. When you played them we played them in a cup game in the Challenge Cup. They all stroke it around. Then I've followed a couple of Rangers B players who then go on loan to other players and they struggle. Or maybe they do all right, but they're not excelling. When I see them, I think he's a right good player. So what we're missing here? There must be something that's, there must be something that we're not doing well as a nation, but as coaches, to kind of like, how they not be able to go and perform and excel in different environments.
I think it's your first team replicate what you're teaching in an academy. But obviously for your teams like Celtic and Rangers, with our first team are obviously elite, it's making that progression. It's going to be very difficult. And like you said, when they find themselves in teams that are lower in the leagues, then it's a total different ballgame.
And I suppose, academy managers aren't under pressure, are they, from boards or from fans as well? True. So then, do we give first team managers, enough time to implement that kind of style? Probably don't, do we? Because it's a points business, and budgets, finances come into play. If you go and play in a better league, or your club's doing well, aren't you? More fans through the door. Yeah,
true. And then it's what's your focus? Is it long-term development or short-term results?
Hey, we could be here all day.
Right, so you represented Scotland and Great Britain at the World University Games. Talk us through that experience.
Yeah, I think, firstly, still one of the best experiences of my footballing career, representing Great Britain for a start, but also, experience. It was a 4 weeks out in China in the World Student Games, so it was every sport you could imagine. It's actually the second biggest multi-sport competition in the world behind the Olympic Games. Wow. So not many people know that. So a lot of kind of like in other sports, a lot of like, let's say the divers, they'll progress through that World Student Games into then the Olympic Games. That's their natural progression. So hockey, basketball, name it, you name it, it's Olympic sports. Basically, all in Athletes Village for 4 weeks. And then you get bussed off to the different locations, and because it was in China, good ones to go to. All the facilities were purpose built for this sort. So imagine being a student and the facilities brand new for you. So we did a week in which we flew into Hong Kong because it was in Shenzhen, it's on the border. Flew into Hong Kong, and then we got a bus through to Shenzhen. As soon as we went through to Shenzhen, police escort for the motorway. I was like, what is going on here? To the Athletes Village. I made it. 19 years old, with the GB tracksuit on, and I'm getting a police escort on the Chinese motorway. But no, it was superb, and how it came about. So university football, you play for kind of like wherever university is located, you play for that national team. I played for Scotland, and there's a home nations tournament. We always used to do quite well in it. I think we didn't win.
No,
No, England won it when we played, but
I
I
think
think
it was
it
the
was
last game against England.
Yeah, it's the 2 years after we won
Yeah.
it, so it must have been that. I mean, you might have moved on, Dudley. So yeah, we won it 2 years later, and then we got the better players from the tournament. There got invited to a trial down at Warwick University, and luckily I got into the squad. Sorry, and then we did a week in Östersund in Sweden, which was a great experience. It was just kind of like learning, well, I say learning, but it was getting to know the players, and it was actually when Graham Potter was the manager of Östersund,
Right.
And they'd started in Division 3 in Sweden and come all the way up to the Europa League. Our manager was good friends with Graham Potter.
And did he get involved in any of the sessions?
He came to watch a lot of sessions, but we played a friendly against them,
Right.
and they were good. They had a good team. I think we actually drew. I think it was a 0-0 kind of like ball fest, but that suited our kind of like style of play. I think we were speaking about before. But yeah, we used a week just to set the culture, set the rules, and that was something that was really good, and something that definitely I'll take with me through my coaching journey as well. Because we were 20. One or two people might have known each other. 20 individuals put together. They were spending a lot of time with each other. The staff were all quite keen on us, kind of like deciding the culture, the rules, what our expectations were as well. So I remember we all got put into a room the first, and they said, take as long as you want. I think we were in there for 2 hours.
And how important do you reckon that is to empower the players to make the decisions in terms of the standards you set within the group?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, massively. And I think that even in the professional side, I think that's something that I think our manager was maybe ahead of his time with that. He's gone on to be the head scout for Arsenal now, in the first team. Yeah, so he's done really well. But that was the first time I was exposed to kind of like that way of thinking. And then I went, obviously, then jumping into the professional game. Nothing had happened. I'd not had that at all since probably now. I'm now 33. So I think he was ahead of his time with that. But it gave responsibility to the players, and I think we came up with 3 kind of like expectations that we all adhered to, and then everyone knew because we decided it.
And
so it wasn't a shock.
Can you remember what that?
Yeah, you put me on the spot there. No, I can't remember. But I can't remember exactly. I'd be lying if I could go and list them all off now. But yeah, they were all done through us, and no one could then shirk the responsibility of that because we'd actually come up with them as a group. So something that definitely, I've taken that with me through my playing career and hopefully into my coaching.
No, that's good. Giving the group a purpose, togetherness. Yeah, no, love that. And you got to the final.
Got to the final as well. Yeah, probably should have mentioned that. So yeah, got to the final. Beat kind of like Brazil in the semis on penalties.
You take one.
I was taken off in extra time.
Were you happy about that? Or?
No, I always say I
always step up.
All would have stepped up because in the training camp as well, after every session, you had to practice the penalties.
Right.
So I think it's like the way that we were playing a 4-2-3-1 system because we were playing in soaring temperatures as well. We had to go and play a style that was going to be kind of like beneficial to us. So it was more of a low block, let the teams have the ball. Can we go and nick one at some point? Quite effective. Quite effective. Really, people probably say it's boring, but that's when you're playing 90 degrees of heat. That's probably the only way that we could play.
Yeah. Play your strengths.
Play to our strengths. So every training session, we went to penalties, but you had to go the same way. You had to go to the same way. So you had to go and tell the keeper which way you were going every session. So it was just like put into the art, and they videoed it.
Right.
So the management team then videoed it, and then he kind of like picked his I think he had 5 penalty takers that based on after training when you were tired.
Keeper knows where you're going.
Keeper knows where you're going and goals. So quite interesting, really. So I think I was 6th.
Right.
But no, I didn't take one, and then beat Brazil in the semi-final. So we got into the gold medal match, and we played Japan, and they were exceptional. To be fair, they were actually the national team in Japan, and how they work their football through their youth stages. Is every player has to go to university. So they went to university. They were playing with the clubs. So that group had been there all the way through the pathway. So it was quite funny that they were pretty much professional players, but they were getting an education as well.
And did you keep an eye on any of the players from that team?
I think I tried to over the first couple of years, and I think some of them definitely did progress through to the actual national team. Because I remember when they got to the World Cup, I kind of kept the team sheet and had a look, but they were technically brilliant. You obviously see the Japanese players that are playing, for Celtic over here just now. And
it's a great way to do it, to be honest.
Yeah.
The mixed education, obviously, you're in control of the training plans from a young age as well, in terms of making sure they get everything they need.
100%. And I think it's something that, we can probably do more in this country.
100%, I agree with that.
Is universities teaming up with clubs as well, and providing that kind of like that program where they've got the football, but also they've got the education.
Yep, no, 100%. What was your transition from university football to full-time football, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so off the back of the playing for Great Britain, I knew that a few teams were starting to kind of take note as well. A lad who used to be at Preston, he's come to university, he's then played for Great Britain. He's playing in the East of Scotland League. I think a few Scottish teams were thinking, oh, maybe we can go and get a cheaper option, which probably I was at the time. We played a friendly match from my Scottish Universities team against Partick Thistle. I always think about right place, right time as well, and moments that define your career. I was playing kind of like as a holding midfield player, but for that game the manager played me as number 10.
Right.
Ended up having a worldie, and we won 7-2. And it was the Thistle team, which were half youth team, half first team. So we had a couple of, they had a couple of decent players. So Jackie McNamara and Simon Donnelly were the manager and assistant at the time. And they watched the game, did enough to impress them, and they invited me to a week's pre-season training the following season. So went to it. Always knew that, I think my dad had always said, if you can go and be the fittest person there, it's going to give you a head start as well. Providing myself on being like fit and athletic. I did have a lads trip to Zante the week before, but also it's a sacrifice you make as well. I was running every day as well, also having a few beers, but also running. Got back to Thistle on my first day, and I won the bleat test. And I think that kind of it probably set my stall out with Jackie to he's serious here about his football. He's not just a technically all right player.
And do you think being at the uni played a big factor in that? In fact, they had obviously strength and conditioning, the training was quite intense, and you were playing so many games.
100%. I think at that time playing for the uni team is fit, hungry players. Yeah, and whether we were competing in training against one another, you wanted to be the best version you could be. You didn't want to be left because you were playing with your peers. You didn't want to be the unfittest, the slowest, the weakest. Yeah, and that was probably the environment that at the time you obviously Dougie made as well. And we always knew when we played games against other teams that they might be a bit more streetwise than us, but they weren't going to be fitter than us. And that's what
that was our biggest strength, to be honest.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. So definitely helped me to kind of excuse me, help me, going for that trial, knowing that I'd had 3 years where I was in the gym. Could have done more. I probably could have done, but I was in the gym, and I was playing games, and I was ready to go.
You put educating yourselves well at that point. For the fact, Edinburgh University were ahead of their time with all the strength conditioning stuff, to be honest, because I don't think many teams have been doing that at that point.
Well, they had the coaches. They were working with other sports as well. It wasn't just football, so they were working with Olympic athletes, weren't they?
Yeah.
So a lot of the Olympic programs, the athletes are still at university.
Yeah.
So these strength conditioning coaches were top notch people. They were on good salaries. We were lucky because we got to use and work with them as well, didn't we?
100%.
So,
what was there a cultural change when you went from the university football to full-time football?
Yeah, I think that on that, I think I always say that I don't want to speak disrespectful about university football, lone league football, East of Scotland at the time, but playing in front of the uni, there's no fans.
Yeah,
no fans. Yes, you were disappointed after a game, and I'm probably more so in the camp. They probably it takes you a few hours to get over it, even though I've played so long, still the case. But you've not got 5,000 Glaswegians telling you you've been rubbish as well, and that was a big shift for me. Was a big shift was when we was dealing with the expectations of fans as well. I remember being nervous when I first joined in the warm up or at half time when we're just passing the ball. If I hit a long one, I thought people are watching me here. Imagine if I don't hit a zing for 30 yards, but I miss my man and it goes into the crowd. And you think, who's this new signing from university? I also had that tag as well.
Yeah,
university football signed to the championship. Bit of pressure there as well. I wasn't moving from an SPL down the way or a championship to championship. I was going from university football. People forget that 3 years ago I'd played for Preston. Yeah, I'd played at a good grounding with football, but effectively using from
it's a better story from university.
University football to championship football, and we ended up winning the championship that year, and I went from university football to the SPL in a year.
I was going to say, do you reckon that pressure actually made you a better player?
Yeah, I think I had more vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that, you know, sometimes being vulnerable actually just spurs you on.
100%.
I've always had this thing, and it sounds daft, every pre-season training is, every pre-season, so that year when we won the league, we went to the SPL, you're going to have to prove yourself again. So I got there and managed to end up getting a new contract, which was great, playing the SPL, but I was thinking, I'm on the running machine on holiday. Until, you know, even on my honeymoon this year and I'm 33, I'll still do my fitness. And the last kind of, let's say, I'll do the usual fitness runs, and I'm thinking, oh, if you don't stay on the running machine and do this, you know, you're not going to get another contract. And that's me putting myself in that kind of place of vulnerability. And I've always done that.
Do you know what? That's probably why you've had the career you've had, though.
Yeah.
I think you need to take pride in what you do, and you want to be the best version of yourself. I mean, I was always like that. I always wanted to improve. Even now, I'm not playing football, but in other aspects of my life, I'm trying to improve and become better.
Yeah.
And I think if you've got that drive, you'll do well in whatever you take to, whether it's work, whether it's football. But yeah, I think you need that, and I think a lot of people sadly lack that.
100%, and it's how do you, and that's the tricky question, isn't it? Is can you teach that? And I think there's certain elements that you can't. That's got to come from within.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Some people can realise it early on in their careers, whether it be football or whether it be other work, but others it takes time.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, if you look back on whatever you do, that drive can only come from, you know, you have support from your friends and your family.
You need
as well.
guidance in terms of doing the right things, but you need to drive yourself.
But no one can take football as an example. No one can go and make sure that you'll go out and do running. No one can go and watch your games back. That's got to come from you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly an interesting, you know, topic with today's kind of like, you know, both working, doing a bit of coaching as well. So,
what was working with Jackie McNamara, right? Obviously, the fact as a player, he was super. You could tell, super intelligent. Like,
So
career.
Yeah. So because I grew up in Preston, I probably missed his part of his career when he was like Celtic captain. Obviously, when I came up to Scotland, obviously I knew there's, you know, he was kind of like a big deal. But I'd probably missed that kind of like growing up in Preston. Obviously, when he focused on like I supported Preston. I supported Sunderland actually, but played for Preston. So I knew about him because he played for Wolves. He had a spell at Wolves, and I remember watching him for. But that was towards the end of his career, wasn't it? I remember watching him at Deepdale at Preston for Wolves. Right. And he was a good. I remember him being a good player, and people talking about how Celtic captain signed for Wolves, and they actually won the league that year, I think.
Yep.
But playing from, firstly, he was, you know, he gave me a lift back to Edinburgh on this my first day, which was, you know, looking back now, that many managers would do that really to a player. So he was really kind, and he just wanted people to. He backed his players. Yep. He signed players that he knew had ability. He was giving people chances as well. He gave me a big chance coming from university. He obviously knew I had some ability. He knew I wanted it as well. So he had young, hungry players, and that was his transfer model. Yep. At that kind of like that season, they didn't have the biggest budget, so he took players maybe released from SPL clubs who he knew, who he'd seen on loan, who wanted it. He had a lad that who had come through a boys' club in the northeast as well. Yeah. And all players, whether it'd be dropping down or going up, wanted to prove a point as well. And his philosophy was, go and express yourself. It wasn't really high tech training. It was warm up, kind of like boxes, maybe some like possession, but it was all about, can you go and express yourself? And it was free flowing football. And I think, you know, looking back, you know, I've always had a good reputation with the Thistle fans for going up, but that team in particular, when we've come back for testimonials, it was one of the most exciting teams for the fans to watch because we played at such an open style.
I think more managers should adopt that approach though, especially young hungry players. Like, see when you're trying to improve yourself, it's a good, if you've got somebody guiding you and giving you the opportunity. Like, I think more players would succeed than actually fail. Yeah, but it's giving them that initial opportunity and letting them get a run of games to see if they can hack it at that level. Yeah, and I think as well, it's like he wasn't just doing it with one or two. I think he brought 8 in that year. So you put 8 in who are all going to go and run for you as well, because not just, yes, they were 8 good technical players, but they were all starting their career. They all maybe had rejection at some point over the couple of years before. Yeah. But they've used it positively.
Exactly, used it positively, and they thought, we're all coming in together. But there was a competitiveness in between each of us all as well. We also wanted to get to the next level individually, but we knew the best way of doing that was all being a collective group and all striving for one thing. I always think that about football is it's a team sport, okay, but it's also can be very selfish as well because someone wants the better contract, someone wants the better team. But everyone looks better when that team is working as a team,
100%,
and we do well as a team.
Yeah, but you touched on earlier in terms of purpose. You need a purpose within your group, and everybody needs to be striving towards that to get that collectiveness. Otherwise, like you said, it's quite a cutthroat business, and you can get to the point where it's every man for themselves.
Yeah.
And you tend to find a lot of clubs like that, it never ends well.
Yeah. And I think you've got to have an element of jeopardy as well, because if you're honest, if you go into Partick Thistle, there's not really, to be a full-time footballer, there's not really many other options below that, is there?
Yeah.
You know, it's a good club in terms of, if you look at the size of the club, the fan base as well. Great club, great fan base. There's not many. You might get one more crack at it full-time after Thistle if you don't do well. But so the alarm bell's there. You need to go and do well to go and progress.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's maybe what we miss as well at the moment, is like playing in front, not putting heaps of pressure on people. And I don't mean that in an early age, but a sense of realism as well.
The thing is, if you want to play at a high level, there needs to be demands, and you need to be able to handle these situations.
Yeah.
And the only way you handle them is by being put in them.
Yeah.
And I'm a big advocate for that in training. Like,
Yeah.
it needs to be intense, and there needs to be demands. And otherwise, especially for academy football, if your expectation is to get these kids into a first team, they need to understand what it takes to get into a first team and have the confidence in themselves, knowing that they can handle stepping into a first team.
Yeah.
And the only way you get that is through hard training and being demanding within the sessions. Because I think it's going the complete opposite way, to a point where it's like all nicey and you're like, if you're all nicey for your academy and you chuck them in a first team, how many of them are going to actually succeed?
No, 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
100%, no, I agree with you.
You can tell me.
So
Because you think you see it over and over again, and you're like
why is the same things happening?
Yeah.
Why are the same things happening? Yeah. No.
See, in terms of obviously you've had a really good career, mate, in Scottish football as a whole, but at certain levels in Scottish football, to be fair, even when you're looking at SPL, it's all short-term contracts now. How's that? Is that quite tough to deal with, knowing that it's your job? You're only really getting 1 or 2 years predominantly. How's that sort of turnaround?
I think when you're young, I think it's okay, and you're young, and the club have put you up in maybe an accommodation as well, or you're sharing with a couple of lads. But when you start getting your first mortgage, and then you realise you've signed 2 years, and it's come to Christmas time, and there's not been any talks regarding an extension, or you don't know how it's how it's landing with the manager. You're in and out of the team. Yeah, and there is pressure. It is pressure. It's certainly, I think I felt it more so my second year in the SPL at Partick Thistle.
Right.
We got promoted, signed 2 years, did well the first year. Second year, didn't start the season in the team for the first time, got into the team, racking up 35 appearances, all in, maybe slightly
Still young as well.
Still young as well, but I still hadn't heard anything from the club when it comes to April. So yeah, that was difficult to take, and I thought that maybe there would have been more communication from that point of view, but there wasn't. And you can ask, or you can go and ask and get the agent, and they say, oh, we'll speak about it later. What do you do as a player?
Yeah.
Do you just the only thing you can do, really, in my eyes, is keep going.
Yep.
You got to go and keep going, haven't you? And that is tough. I don't think people realise in everyday work or life what's that like. To have a job that can be taken away from you in 3 months, and then it's going like, well, actually, you might have got a couple of months of money sat away for mortgage payments, car payments, or whatever your outgoings are.
Yeah.
But after that there's not much there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's dealing with pressure. That's playing in front of pressure, and that's dealing with pressure. Yeah.
And do you think that as you went throughout your careers, that got easier, or is it still the same sort of concept?
I think getting a bit older, I think when you establish yourself, and certainly kind of like, obviously when I've played kind of part-time now, and I've had a few other like business interests as well, it becomes easier. Excuse me. And I think you go full circle, and actually you start maybe enjoying your football a little bit more, because
you're not
fully reliant on it. Obviously it makes a difference to part-time wages, don't get me wrong. But you're not fully relying on it. But also there's a pressure as well, because you've had a good career, and you're getting a club's putting faith in you in part-time level. I want to make sure I'm in top condition, and I want to make sure I'm giving people that club are getting value for money, really, as well. So that's a different type of pressure that gets put on you as well. So no, certainly, something that young players need to be aware of, that unless you're exceptional, it is 1 year, 2 year deals. And it's it's finding a coping strategy, and everyone's different with that. Is can you block that out and just keep that tunnel vision, keep that work ethic up as well, and hopefully I think some clubs are getting better with that now. I think because players who have then progressed to coaches are now coming into that coaching environment, and they've been there.
Yeah.
So I think I think teams are getting a wee bit better with that.
And that's where education comes in as well, though, in terms of like going the university route. At least you know you've got something which takes the pressure off of you a bit as well. Do you know what I mean? You've got that sort of comfort blanket.
Yeah, you've got the comfort blanket that, you know, I managed to finish off my degree over 2 years whilst I was playing professional football. So that was, you know, I'm so glad that I did that. And albeit no one's going to guarantee you're going to get a job, but you've certainly got a head start.
Yeah.
A head start as well, and you've got those qualifications in the bag as well. So I remember just going on that a story. So I signed and I couldn't get into the team. I couldn't get into the team at Thistle for the first 12 games because I think we'd won 10 out of 12.
Right.
Quite rightly as well. The team were flying, so I ended up going on loan to Forfar. I went on loan. My first game was East Fife away. We got beat. Manager stuck it with me. Went to Stranraer away. I mean, that was the experience, going to Stranraer away. My parents actually drove from Preston to come and watch.
What was that drive time?
Well, I think because it's on the west, isn't it? So it wasn't as bad as some of the games. And no, it's been brilliant. Me and my dad have sat down that recently and looked. I think he's almost been to every single game. I don't think he made it to Ross County, Dingwall, so he's kicking himself because he never came to the years when we played them in the SPL. But yeah, so we went to Stranraer, got my first red card, and that's my second game. So I was only there for 4 games, and that was my loan done. So straight red, as you'll know, I'm probably not. I won't go down as a dirty
clean player, mate.
Yeah, I wouldn't go down as a dirty player. But yeah, I got a straight red for a late tackle. Never a red. Anyway, managed to get the loan extended for another 4 games. Really enjoyed it. Came back to Thistle, and Jackie put me in the team. Played Cannon Beef, won 3-1 at Firhill. Didn't probably have my best game, but you know, didn't have my worst. But Jackie was quite big on you're in the winning team. It stays in. You know, everyone's done well.
Like that,
yeah, done well. Anyway, we get to the Wednesday, and Jackie's been made Dundee United have made an approach for Jackie, and Jackie's called us in, and Jackie's left. Got great move for him. Him and Simon Donnelly have gone. The youth team manager gets the job. We've got Morton away, big game, and then I'm gone from the starting lineup to in the stand.
You're joking.
So he's put me in the stand, and I'm thinking, so I was in the stand against Morton Tuesday night, Firhill game. I was still in the stand, and I think my dad said to me, "said oh, look, you know, I know you've signed it 2 years, but don't worry, you've got your university to look." Because I'd worked so hard to get into that team. It'd taken me almost 6 months to get into the team. I felt like I'd taken my chance.
Yeah.
And then through a change of manager, nothing that I'd done, and the manager, you know, who came in explained to me saying, "Look, I'm just going with tried and tested. I know you've only played 1 game. And you know, not much you really can say at that point." Managed to get them back into the team, on the bench. Did welcome off the bench, and managed to play the 12 games. So it does change so quickly.
But to be fair, that shows resilience on your part, though. Paul Watson touched on that in terms of like a change in management. Like they've just got a completely different viewpoint. And it's like it's one of the ones where you can go from being like loved, and then very quickly, like you said, playing well, playing week in week out, to then not involved at all. It's like it's a roller coaster.
And I always say to young players as well now, it's like, make sure you can go and play different styles of football. Go and make sure you can mix the game up. Yes, can you go and play a couple of positions? I think always thinks that's help in terms of selection. But can you go and mix it? Can you go and can you play on a football side? Can you go and, if you're going to play second ball team, you're going to be more direct. Make sure you've got your skill sets. Make sure you can go and do everything, that you're undroppable for any manager coming in, and that you're not surplus to requirements.
Do you think part of you, the fact you've got that attitude and you're always striving to improve, and like you said, when things go wrong, it's not a case of spit the dummy out, you react positively, you work harder, and you think, I'm going to show you. Do you think that's obviously extended your career, and for the fact you've had so many good moves?
I think so. I think it's always meant that, I think it's also meant that I've put myself kind of like in a position where I can go and do a job for players. And if you look at the managers that I've had in the clubs that I've been at, there's been definitely big contrast in styles. You know, you look at the free-flowing football we played at Partick Thistle, so we then playing 8 years later at Arbroath, where we nearly won the championship, but we played a football where we were like, you know, direct, make sure we can go and win the ball, high up the pitch off a second ball, and then we can go and play. But it's a workman team. It was a workman's team. It was kind of like a band of brothers. No one will outwork us. No one's going to bully us. Come up to Arbroath. Let's see if you come back and take points. The wind will be blowing. The conditions, it'll be rubbish, but we'll make sure we're on top. So I've always tried to, you know, make sure that I can play, you know, and that's probably has helped. Can play in all these different types of styles of managers as well. And
how do you reckon you've become adaptable? Do you reckon it's game intelligence, or is it listening to your managers, or a bit of both?
Listening to my managers, trying to get a kind of insight what they want me to do.
Mhm.
How do they want me to go and play? And then, I mean, don't get me wrong, at the time, some probably, people when I left Arbroath probably forgot that I'd done 3 years there, that I was actually probably more of a technical player because I was playing that style. But, that's fine. I can live with that because, I've been quite lucky that when I've been at the clubs, I've played more games than I've not really in terms of selection.
Nah, brilliant. So what's been your best moment in football?
Ooh, best moment in football. Hard to narrow down the best moment. I'll give you 2 or 3. Obviously, the Will Student Games, get into that whole experience, playing in the final in Japan, 35,000 people. That was, sensational. It was brilliant for me.
Yep.
Winning the league with Partick Thistle, obviously, that scoring. Everyone looks back on it, scoring the kind of like the title goal against Morton. Still go there, go back to Firhill now and get remembered for that. I think, which is brilliant for me and my family. But clinching the title at Falkirk as well, and the celebrations were just unreal, incredible, really. In terms of
do you think like leagues and promotions are the hardest thing to get for the fact it's consistency throughout the whole season? Yeah,
I said this to the guys at Spartans last year. Unfortunately, we got narrowly beaten in the playoff final, and I said that to go 36 games to win a championship is incredible. To go and keep that level of consistency. Let's make it count on the day. Unfortunately, we couldn't get past Dumbarton. Excuse me, couldn't get past Dumbarton. But yeah, in terms of like winning titles, to have that consistent, performance week in, week out. Yes, you can have adversity. How do you bounce back from adversity? How do you go and have injuries in your group? Some people might come in. Can they go and keep raising the bar? Can they keep the players who are backbench out of the team? Everyone, the group dynamic. How are people going to react when they don't play? Keeping, as players, and as a management team, keeping everything, ticking along nicely, picking up points, I think is massive.
And the teams that have got promoted or won leagues, what would you say the 3 biggest traits that the teams have had that you've noticed?
Well, I've only won kind of like 1 league. Come close, I think I've my playoff record in terms of getting beaten in the playoffs is probably up there in Scottish football, to be honest. I think I've been beaten in the playoffs with every club I've been at.
Still need to get there though, mate.
I know. In terms of that Thistle team, togetherness. Like I said, the lads who maybe, prime example, I never played at the start, always still on it at training, always making sure I was ready to come in. And then when I did come in, I made sure that no one was going to get that, that hunger, no one was going to take the shirt off me. So the togetherness, but hunger, but also in the right way as well. And also just there is that confidence. There is going to be kind of like bumps in the road, and it's like that tunnel vision of thinking it's 36 games. Don't get too high, don't get too low. It's a cliche, but it's like there's always points to be played with. Making sure 2 bad results don't become 3. Things like that. Can you go and split the league, into quarters? Can you think into mini kind of like sections just to get through difficult parts? All things that managers and I've done as players before.
What's been your toughest moment in football?
Toughest moment, couple here. I'd say getting beat, 2 playoff defeats, 1 to Dundee United for Falkirk, where we were the better team. We were the better team, and we never went through. We finished second that year in the league. And I felt that we still would have had to play, I think it might have been Hamilton, but not even to get the chance to go and play them. And was disappointing because over 2 legs we were better than Dundee United. And then similar for Dunfermline as well, getting beat, and it happened to be Dundee United the year after as well. Again, we finished 4th in the league, played Dundee United, and again, over 2 legs, we were brilliant. Just
why do you reckon they ended up going through?
First game against Falkirk was individual, like probably mistakes really. Comfortable in the game, mistakes, and that happens. And then against Dunfermline, probably us not taking our chances when we were on top. So those 2
margins,
those 2 stick out with me in terms of kind of like low points as well. I'd also say a low point was when I left Thistle as well. I think that you don't realise sometimes until you leave a club that how much probably they meant to you. Probably you should have stayed. I think I was told that. Well, I was told that I wasn't gonna be necessarily first choice in the first choice centre midfield partnership, and being told that at 24 was probably quite tough to take. And I was umming and ahhing whether to sign the new contract that they offered. And then that was quickly taken out of my hands, I think, because I had delayed on that.
Yep.
They'd obviously recruited somewhere else. And then from a moment of, no, it's not your decision, to 24 hours later being released and then seeing your name on the ticker tape that you've been released from Partick Thistle on Sky Sports, it was quite tough. And then you realise how hard it is to get back into the Premier League as well. How hard it is to go and win a title to get back up.
Yep.
I thought I'd done well enough to maybe nick another SPL team. I hadn't because I had no other offers there.
Yep.
I was dropped down to Championship and never got back up. So that was like, looking back, one tough to take.
Yep.
Albeit at the time I was ready to go again and prove it.
Do you think in scenarios like that though, how important do you think, obviously there's luck, I suppose, to an extent, and networking?
Yeah, I think
a lot is who you know in terms of getting you in. And
yeah, because I look at now, I look at players that have what did I play, like 60, 70 appearances over 2 years in the SPL. I can look at players now. If you made those appearances, you're probably going to get, and your team's still in the league, you're probably going to get another team in the Premiership.
Yep.
And I didn't get one. And that's probably down to, networking, whether it be I had an agent at the time, whether, an agency or myself. I always think I could probably sell myself the best.
Yep. Still young though, that's the thing.
I know, and I'm still young and I've only been in the game. I
Yep.
was only in the game for 2 years. Sorry, 3 years at that point. But if I'd known that now, if I'd gone and done that now, I'd be thinking, I'm definitely going to go and get another team at that
It's
level.
difficult. Like, if you've got a good people around you giving you guidance, your journey is going to be way easier than going in there blind.
Yeah, 100%.
Because unfortunately, you learn most by the negative experiences, as opposed to the positive.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
What has a career in sport taught you?
Well, firstly, resilience.
the biggest one.
It's taught me, I think you don't get, no one gives you anything. You've got to go on, you've got to go and earn that kind of contract, but then you've got to go and earn the starting lineup, and then you've got to go and earn to go and stay in the team.
Yep.
So it's no one gives you anything. No one gives you anything. Football owes you nothing. Okay, so it's taught me that. The resilience, the ups and downs, don't be too high, don't be too low as well. That's what it's taught me. But it's also taught me that, hard work can be rewarded as well. In terms of, if you go and put the graft in, and you go and put the effort in on a daily basis, weekly basis, that you will get good. There will be good times as well. And also, I think I always talk about individual sports, team sports, and having success with a team as well. I think it's fantastic, and it's like that feeling of the togetherness that you're training with each other every day. To then 3 points on Saturday is brilliant. Yeah, and that's something that, touched on before in terms of my coaching journey, I'd like to bring into teams as well. Is really getting that kind of like team spirit and that team togetherness, at the forefront of everyone's mind. Yeah,
no, really good. I think the big thing, like you said, it's like networking as well, in terms of like, it's not till you're out of football you realise how many good people you met. Yeah, and like you said, when you're in, you then can identify what was a really good culture. Yeah, and what wasn't. Yeah, but when you're in it, it's quite hard to identify that sometimes.
And I think as well, I think I slightly on top of it, but you're talking about networking there as well. It's like, you need to go, even though you're professional athlete, you need to make sure you keep growing as a person as well. Every club, everyone always asks for a player to go up to like the hospitality suite. A couple of clubs, people always say, ask James because he doesn't mind speaking. Well, I don't mind chatting, but I use going up into hospitality as an area for me to think, actually, I've got 100 people here who are going to listen to me. Outside of football, when is that ever going to be the chance? So whether it might be the now, whether it was someone had a connection with another team, whether it had a connection just in business or something like that. So I'd always go up because they'd ask me a couple of questions that I could rattle off easy about the game, 5 minutes, but I had an audience, 100 people. When I stopped playing football, even so, maybe get away with it now at Spartans, but when I lose a football kind of taggers, I might not have that kind of audience. So I always say to any young players, go and put yourself in those uncomfortable situations to start off with. And you never know when someone in that room might think, he actually spoke really well. Yeah. There.
And it's only when we get growth as well, being uncomfortable and putting yourself in these scenarios.
Exactly, yeah.
What is your definition of high performance?
Great question. I'd say my definition of high performance is performing at the highest level possible for yourself. Yeah. So it's maximising all your skill sets, performing at that highest possible level consistently, but also in the highest amount of pressure as well. So that might be kind of like playing in front of 100 fans is, can you go and consistently play at that level week in, week out? Whether it might be 5,000 fans, is can you go and put yourself in the position where you're playing under pressure, but you're consistently bringing out your top game, your A game on a weekly basis. So that's what I'll go for with that one.
And looking back, would you say that you've done that throughout your career, do you think?
I probably have at spells. I think I had, I think I've always, at times, sometimes always thought, I think that I was maybe worried about, the managers maybe not named the team on a Thursday, on a Friday. Probably spent loads more focus thinking, am I in the team, rather than actually, thinking what I'm going to do on the pitch as well. So yeah, probably, looking back on a few things that I changed. But I've always had a knack of playing well in the big games. Whether it's scoring or having a good performance as well. I don't know whether it's something that I'm not meant to do, and it's not like I'm more up for it because there's more people watching. But I've always had that knack of like
the big moments.
In the big moments and playing well.
Go against Hearts.
But have I done that consistently? Probably not.
You touched on earlier in terms of your current manager, Dougie Samuel. He was probably the first coach that I've worked with that introduced mindset. Yeah. And I remember at the start of the season, he asked, like, how do you want to be remembered? And what was the other question? It was like, how do you want to be remembered? And what's your goals for this season? Like, it was pretty much, so that's the first time it got me thinking, right, how do I want to be remembered as a player, etc. And how can I implement that now to like perform that way? How is he still like that at Spartans at the minute?
Yeah. I think so. To context there, we had Dougie, didn't we, as our manager at university, and so I linked back up with Dougie 12 years later when I signed for Spartans. Last June, so 2 years ago now. And he's the way that he's developed. Firstly, the way he's developed the coaches, he's always been, very thoughtful in terms of his manager. Not much of a. He could have a switch. Don't get me wrong, but he's also that kind of mindset as well. But now the way he's developed as a coach is brilliant. He's very much still like that. He always challenges the players. Always, his mantle is, can we go and lift that Spartan shirt to high levels? Whether it was you having the shirt, 8 years ago, to us taking it now, is can we keep on lifting it up to a higher place? So it's always he's really good with that. And he's definitely kind of like always keeping kind of like guys to think about different things, different scenarios as well. And football is important, but how can we relate it to kind of like more? There's always a purpose, always a meaningful thing that we're playing for at the club as well. So no, he's brilliant.
You talked about empowering the players with the video analysis. Yeah, can you talk us through that?
Yeah, so in terms of like for a League 2 club, the setup, is brilliant. So we have every game gets uploaded onto the Huddle platform. Excuse me. And then your individual clips through Wisesky are sent to you. So you can watch so whether it's me pressing the ball, whether it's me taking the ball, my passes, my duels and my shots, they're all sent to me individually. Right. And then the club puts together like a highlights package for the game. And then that is dropped into our kind of like everyone's folder by Sunday evening at the latest. And the players are all encouraged to watch that and to provide comment on the highlights that the management team have put together. Just to create a discussion, an open discussion where people aren't knifing each other in the back, but it's just to facilitate that we can come into training on a Tuesday and we can have an honest conversation of what went well, what went right, and a lot of the time it's positive stuff as well, and then all things that we can do better. And as I said there, it's not like to hold people to by the throats there. It's like, well, asking the question, what were you thinking in that situation that led you to do that action? And he's really big on that, and that's something that I think for a group is really, really powerful as well. It creates clarity as well. And people don't have to agree. People can disagree, but the way he facilitates it is done in a really good way, in a really positive way for the group.
And it's good as well, the fact he has got an open and honest environment. I think that's what brings out the best in people. And I think it shows a manager with a lot of confidence when he can speak to the experienced players. You tend to find some managers maybe ego. They'll maybe ignore the experienced players instead of using their experiences and actually helping to better their team.
Because the experienced players also have the ears as well of the dressing room. And working together with the manager with that, I think it can be really beneficial. And the manager, Dougie, certainly does that. So he leans on, myself, Paul Watson, Callum Booth as well, the captain, Kev Waugh as well, like people who experienced as well, or in positions of influence on the pitch as well, and he'll get just see how they're feeling as well. But he's great. He's a really good man.
That's what brings people together,
Yeah,
though.
it
And
does.
giving people trust.
Giving value, you feel valued.
100%.
You feel valued to be in that team that's gone up. You start running through brick walls for managers.
Yeah. Nah, brilliant. It's been great having you on, and it's been good to catch up.
I know. It's been a while. I said we were talking about before, weren't we? I was rather catching you up here than you taking me for one of your gym sessions, anyway.
Yeah, good old uni days, mate.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's great, and obviously the content that you're providing here is really good, and it's great, kind of like watching you do your thing as well, and also as a player, I knew that you wanted to go and develop as a player as well, but also now obviously you're not playing as well, but how you're developing kind of like the coaching and the mindset as well is brilliant to see.
I think it's like anything. What you learn so much through sport.
Yeah.
And I think it's like if you can pass the experiences on to like younger players, whether they use it in sport, business, their careers, they'll hopefully go on to be successful.
It's so transferable, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
It's so transferable. Even the stuff I'm doing with the youth section at Spartans now, it's like it's almost like life. Yes, it's football, but it's also like
100%.
A bit of life coaching as well, isn't
you're
it?
using the sport something the kids are passionate about, but you're giving them the life skills on the back of that. When I first started the coaching, it was all football. And it's amazing, like, as I've went through it, how I've changed as a coach. And now my big thing is this, in terms of trying to get the kids having good habits in their life. And you can slowly but surely see that, like, them changing as people and become better people. And even in terms of taking ownership, like you said, I've been trying to give them, the kids, ownership for their sessions. So things like when they come in, the first 15 minutes of their sessions is on them. It took a while, but now the kids do it like routinely. They'll come in, they'll set up, they hear them chatting to each other, getting stuff set up and that.
But then within that, you put the ownership of like, it's their 15 minutes, they can do whatever they want to do, but also that means they have to communicate.
100%.
That means you have to go and engage with people. They're going to have to say, well, what do you think?
There's
so many different skills that they're building just from, instead of just putting on the football practice between themselves, isn't it?
It's good. And I think, like you said, from a uni perspective, I met so many great people with that experience. And so, I'll always be thankful for that. So, and you're one of them, mate. So,
exactly, and we're still mates now. Brilliant.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cheers.